I'd like to welcome Rita Hansen to our CEO interview series. For the past 7 years, Rita Hansen has been the CEO of Onboard Dynamics, a company that's helping to lead the clean fuel revolution. She's been a huge supporter of CEOX from the beginning, and she doesn't know this yet, but one of her nominees is being considered for a CEO role right now. And I just really appreciate her being here for the first time to help me with this new series as we're starting trying to help women who have the goal of becoming a CEO one day to get some insights into how to handle this important role. So Rita, thank you for being here. And if you could first tell us a bit more about Onboard Dynamics.
Oh, I'd love to. That's my favorite topic. And thank you, Luann, for inviting me to participate with you in this CEO interview series. Yes, so I like to tell people that Onboard Dynamics really is figuring out how to help our customers really drive down their emissions profile, whether it's in the world of transportation or the world of methane emissions mitigation, or in the world of just transport and use of cleaner burning fuels. So we have a patent pending technology that brings environmental benefits and economic value to our customers, which right now consist of fleet operators and natural gas utilities. But we're expanding that platform today to go after more aggressively opportunities in the renewable natural gas space and also in the stranded and flared natural gas space. So we're super excited about where we are today and where we are going in the future.
It sounds really challenging and exciting, and I appreciate the hard work in this area on behalf of me and my children for the future. So could you take us through your journey to becoming a CEO?
Yes, as you know, this is my first time CEO position. Throughout my 30 plus years in my career since I graduated, and this is going to date myself, but I graduated with my engineering degree from University of Washington back in 1981 up in Seattle. I did not become a CEO until 7 years ago, as you pointed out earlier. So that was a 32-year span of being an engineer, moving into management, moving into executive leadership positions, but never taking on that responsibility of being number one or being the CEO. And I would have to tell you that it wasn't a conscious decision on my part to say, I want to be a CEO. It was just, it evolved. And so the journey was one of the path and not the destination. And it just became the right time at the right place and the right position, the right company. It was all of these attributes or characteristics about the opportunity that made me realize, yes, I want to do this. So we could talk a little bit more about that, but it wasn't I set out to say, I want to be a CEO. Never at any one point in my career did I do that. I have to tell you that I was number two. I was in the number two position multiple times. Mm-hmm. So whether that was COO or head of engineering or head of operations or just being that co-founder, because I've also been fortunate to be able to participate in startups and early phase companies due to my financial position. I've been doing that now for, gosh, I want to say over 15 years. And that was just because I was very lucky in being in the right place at the right time at the right company where I was able to achieve that financial independence and move into being able to participate with startups and early phase companies. But like I said, I was always in that number two place, mm-hmm. Never really taking on the responsibility of being the CEO.
So then if you didn't really have a point where you thought, oh, I want to be a CEO, what made you think that this was the perfect CEO role for you?
That's a really good question, Luann. I would have to say that it was all about the circumstances and the people
Okay.
and the opportunity. So meeting Chris Hagan, Dr. Chris Hagan up at Oregon State University Cascades, and having, knowing what he knew and the innovation and what he was looking for, and then bringing in Jeff Whitwer, who is my co-founder. So, and having the three of us really sit around multiple meetings, multiple engagements, talking about the technology, talking about how Jeff and I could help Chris commercialize his innovation. And it just was a process of the three of us really sitting around and talking about what this could look like, naming the company. I was probably engaged for about 4 or 5 months with Jeff and Chris before, and the interesting comment I'm going to make is that I felt that Jeff should have been the CEO, or hey Jeff, this is, you know, right up your bailiwick. You have the MBA, the PhD, the PE. This is your space. You've been in energy all your career. I was new to the natural gas industry at that time. This was back in 2013. And Jeff kind of pushed back and said, no, this is not, I don't want to be doing this. And Rita, you are the logical person. And so it was through those conversations that I realized that what he was saying was resonating with me, that I could actually do that.
So what are some of those skills, abilities that he saw in you, and you probably now at least see in yourself, that have made you the great CEO?
I would say that probably some of my strengths are that I can see the forest through the trees, in the sense of I'm able to see the big picture, but yet I can also live in the details. That I've been able to always communicate well, especially technology, super deep tech, science-based. I understand the technology, and I have the ability to put it into layman's terms and be that communicator that bridges the gap between, well, this is a really cool, innovative, great idea. Well, what does that mean? And will it matter to the world, to people, to customers? And so being able to make that connection between the idea and the value proposition is something that I have learned about me, that I can do that really well. That I can, when I talk and I relate to people, people can relate back to me. And I really try to make people feel really comfortable. There's no dumb question. There's absolutely no dumb question. And if anything, if somebody's not understanding, it's the person that's explaining it that really needs to work on how better to explain it. So I feel that I write well, like I say, I talk, I communicate. I'm also a very collaborative leader. I'm not to me, I really believe in the team. I'm very, very team oriented. And being in this kind of a position with a small group, knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know, and feeling comfortable saying that and having the confidence and saying, I don't know that, but I know who does. And just being able to put that out there, because that's what makes a great CEO, is surrounding yourself with a lot smarter people.
Right. Good tips. So what was one of the toughest decisions you have had to make as a CEO?
Well, I don't want to disclose a whole lot of, what I'm going to say to you, Luann, is that the toughest decisions always relate to people. and making sure you have the right people on the bus with you at all times. I talk about this in terms of, because I just had the interview I did the other night with Ricardo for NGV Global is like, I'm nothing without my team.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just making sure that you have the right people on your team, whether it's in your bus, on your boat, on your rope. As you know, a lot of my analogies are around climbing. You just always want to make sure you have the right people, and you have the right people doing the right, you're leveraging their strengths, that you're putting them in positions that really, really leverages their contributions and their ability to contribute. And so the toughest decisions I've had to make as a CEO have always been, there's been 3 or 4 of those kinds of decisions have always been around people.
Yeah. So then maybe it's a similar answer with dealing with your board. What has been a challenging time you've had to deal with your board?
Oh,
and how have you dealt with it?
Well, yes, that's actually one of the toughest decisions I've had to make. First of all, right now I have the most amazing board, and we are a board of 5 people, and I couldn't be more blessed to have the board that I do. I talk to them and communicate with them on a regular basis, and they each bring a certain strength to me, which I just so value. But 3 years ago, I had to restructure the board, and it was very, very difficult. It was many sleepless nights because I knew that I had to make a change. I knew in my heart of hearts that I had to make a change, and that the way the board was constituted at that time was not healthy for me. And so it was very difficult, but and it took a long time to go through those steps. And but I have to tell you that looking back on that and today, now 3 years later, just having the board that I do, I'm so happy that I sucked it up.
Yeah.
Because it sucks.
Yeah. Going through things like that is never fun. You got to keep your eye on the future with that. So what's currently keeping you up at night? Hopefully not much, but I'm sure there's always something.
Oh, well, no, we're living in COVID times,
yes.
right? So what keeps me up at night right now is that we try to keep the team safe and healthy, because we have people that have to go out into the field, they have to travel, they have to go, and we have systems out there that we need to keep our customers up and running. That's like first is the team safety and health, and then secondly is keeping our customers up and running. So having to make sure that we are practicing all the right procedures. I mean, that we have procedures, that we have a risk mitigation plan, that we are following that we're having to make sure that we don't have somebody come back that all of a sudden infects the whole team. So it's really, really, it's heightened all of our awareness around how we behave and interact with our customers. So that's one thing that keeps me up at night. Secondly, it's cash. I mean, it's all about cash preservation. We've been hit hard by COVID as far as our sales traction, because we can't send salespeople out into the field to buy or lease our systems. Our customers want to see, they want to talk, they want to go and kick the tires, so to speak. So it's very difficult to do that today, especially when your best customer is down in Southern California. And he's what we call a lighthouse account, because he's just so willing to show others about the value proposition and all the benefits of our system. But we can't get people there to show them uh, how this all works and all the value of it. And so our sales have just tanked right now because it's difficult to sell what we do over a digital platform like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Understood.
So
Understood.
cash and cash, team safety, team health, keeping customers up and running, and cash preservation.
Oh,
Those
so
are
just that.
just, just, just that, you know. I try to be practical but optimistic. We have so many great things happening. Oh, but my goodness, this is such a tight wire right now. This
Mhm.
could go either way. I know of other companies already, that startups, clean tech, that they've run out of money and they've had to shut their doors.
Mhm.
So it's,
Yeah, it's challenging times for sure. Well, going back to one of the leadership skills you said you had, you really see the forest for the trees. How do you make those really big picture decisions? Do you have a formula? Does it just come naturally to you? What do you assess?
wow. That's a really great question, Luann, because it's so important for this, I believe, the CEO, and um, and in my case, I'm so blessed to have Jeff Whitwer my team, because he has this really complicated title called Chief Product Strategist.
Hmm.
So he's not a CTO, but he's really he's a visionary in the sense of a thought leader around the industry. He is an amazing reader and just always picking up, um, reading, consummate reading about what the trends are going on, whether it's in this country, around the world. And he and I have really great debates and discussions around our product roadmap and how we are truly not just a one-trick pony, but also looking at all the opportunities out there, and really trying to make sure that we're not bringing a product to market that doesn't meet a real demand today, but also but making sure we're positioned for the future. So when you talk about those big picture decisions, it's kind of starts with me and Jeff. So having that really special relationship that we have, that's been developed over 7 years. I see some things in the industry, he sees other things in the industry. We're always external facing. So truly trying to understand what's happening in the industry, and then bringing it back to the rest of the team. Like, as you heard, I'm really collaborative. So we have regular meetings or discussions with the team around how, okay, if we go down this path, what does that mean? We need to stay focused on what we're doing today, make sure we're executing today, but then also always looking to the future. And so it's all about the communication and making sure that the rest of the team knows their role in that, and then but also being able to provide feedback, even all the way down to the technician who's out in the field and talking to the customers and bringing that information back. It's gathering up all those data points and making sure that they're informing us as we try to move the ball down the road. So decisions are never unilateral in my world. They just aren't. I'm not a unilateral decision maker. I never have been. I've always looked for feedback and consensus if it's possible. But then at the end of the day, there is, at some point, I do end up having to say, like, we make decisions about price to a certain customer. And I'll get everybody's data point. And then at the end of the day, I got to say, no, it's this.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of weigh the good with the bad, and I mean, not the good, the bad, but you weigh all the pros and cons.
Yeah.
But as far as like the big decisions are really around product roadmap and our future and our strategy, and we have at times done some taken people offline to really kind of broaden the scope of thinking out of the box and innovation. And I wish we did more of that.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, living in COVID times, it does feel like we are in the trenches fighting the battle. And I'm hopeful that we're going to get some time later on this year to be able to take a deep breath and go, okay, let's figure out 2021.
Right. Right. So transitioning to your team and your company culture, you mentioned how important team is to you. So I'm going to throw out all the questions at once. I'd love for you to talk about how you surround yourself with the best people, how you build a diverse team, and how your company culture has been evolving over the past 7 years, and how you manage that. I know that's a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So how do I surround myself? How do I build diversity? And what was
Your company culture.
and the company culture, how it's been evolving. Yeah. So, well, let me take that last one because that's actually pretty interesting. The last 5 months, we up until March of 2020, we had never done company-wide meetings on a regular basis. It would always be, we had executive team meetings and, and then also meetings to address issues or a specific topic. But we never had a regular scheduled company-wide meeting. And we're about 15 people now, plus or minus, because we've got contractors that are engaged with us. They're not on the payroll, but it's just a matter of semantics, really. If we know who the team is, and we have full-time, part-time, and contractors. So when the pandemic hit and we were all working from home, it was just like an instant, we are all working from home. But we'd always had people who were remote. We had people in Texas and California and Arizona and Portland. And so, but now that everybody in Bend was also working from home. So we immediately implemented, a weekly company-wide Microsoft Teams check-in. Mm. And that was 24 weeks ago. And we've had 24 company-wide weekly meetings. Even though some of us have been able to go back to the office in Bend, we have kept those meetings open and alive. And in the beginning, everybody's calling in, and I insisted that everybody have their video on, that we got to see them, and sometimes we'd see the dogs, and sometimes we see the kids, and sometimes we'd see whatever. And for the first few weeks, a lot of it was just personal. It was like, how are you doing? I would come up with some kind of question du jour of like, what are you missing most? And we would just go and take a whole hour and just go right around the whole room. It's kind of like I would be like, okay, this is how it was, very random. It's like, here's how you guys are showing up on my screen. And we continue that to this day, Luann. And I have to tell you that was one of the most aha moments for when somebody said it's like, we should do this, we should continue this, or we should not let this go, when we actually all end up back in the office. And because now it's come down to where everybody, I kind of say, hi, here's what's going on this week, and watch for my interview. And, we had this great product launch, and kudos to so-and-so for their role in getting this deployed or whatever. So I kind of make sure I highlight certain people and the work they're doing, but then we go around the room and and everybody gets to talk about what they're working on, and just say, here's, here's what I'm doing, and here's why I think it's important, and it's just been a really, really great bonding, and truly has brought the whole team so much closer together. And I'm just so appreciative that somebody said we should continue to do this.
Yeah.
So it made me realize that they feel there's not one person on the team who doesn't feel like what they're doing is not important to the
Right.
company.
Right.
You know, whether they're pushing paper, well, not you push paper, but whether they're just paying the bills. You know, Abby is our admin, but she does way more than that. But yeah, it's just, you know, how we all have our role to play, and that is how I envision how, for me, this is how Onboard Dynamics really will thrive and survive during this time, is by strengthening this bond and strengthening our culture and making sure that we are attentive to what people's needs are. We have employees who it's gonna be difficult when school starts, just like, you know, as you know, here, that how do parents who are two working parents with kids, and if they're going into they're starting school in an online environment, online remote environment, how in the heck are they going to survive? And I, being a female CEO, absolutely have told my managers, you cannot support your male employees by telling them they have to come to work. If you know there's another working spouse, and we have to accommodate.
Yeah.
We have to figure out how to accommodate these working parents, because it can't all land on the shoulders of the woman or the other spouse.
Yes. Yeah. I appreciate
So,
that.
well,
That. And it's so funny, just to share a little, because you know my husband as well, and both working, and I consider my husband the ultimate feminist, and we definitely struggled in the spring that it was all on me, right? It's just kind of default, and I had to really put my foot down and schedule and say, okay, you have the kids on this day. And it's just it's really interesting how it's just automatic.
yes.
So I
Yes.
appreciate you making your team aware of that and being so supportive of them.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like this is my job as the CEO. Now, so the great thing is, Luann, is that of the 15 people, we are now, so there's myself, there's Karen, there's Abby, there's Rebecca, there's Heather, we are now 6 women.
That's great.
Out of 15. And I feel like, I mean, and in various, you know, CFO, admin, okay, that's, you know, you could say, well, those are classic, you know, the classic female roles. But we also have some, Heather in sales, business development, Rebecca, you know, Rebecca Kaufman. I mean, so that's a highly technical executive role. So we are, and she's an engineer, she's a fellow engineer. So I'm thrilled. We have our first Native American technician that we just hired. I'm so excited about that, and who's also military. So I'm very excited about that. We really, I push. I really push. It's hard because we're in Bend, obviously, but I really believe in diversity. I feel that I don't want yes people on my team. I don't want people saying to me yes when they feel deep down that they should be saying no. No, Rita, I don't think that's you're thinking along, you're not thinking about this correctly, or can I throw out this other point of view? We are completely diverse. We're diverse politically, environment. We got some, we kind of, in our world, we're sort of, how should I say this? I'm very passionate about the clean tech aspects of what we're doing, but natural gas is a little bit on the green side of red. And so you've got the pro, you got the pro and the cons around natural gas. And I just believe in transitions and bridging and the science, and making sure that you're making the most effective, efficient decisions today based on what's available today, to transition to where we need to be. And then you keep upping your game. I don't believe that you should continue to drive dirty diesel trucks saying, well, I'll make a change in 2030 when the technology is available. It's like, no, you don't need to do that. Technology is available today. Right. And so I, that's just kind of, but that's the engineer in me, that's the science in me, that's just says, let's start making changes today. Let's get from coal to natural gas. That is cleaner. Great. Let's start introducing renewables. Great. But you still need to have some backups, so anyway, I have a great diverse team, and I wish we had more diversity here in Bend to choose from. Yeah. That's our challenge here in Bend, is the population, right? How do we increase the diversity of the population base to be able to have more diversity on our teams, because I believe that you will have better decisions.
I wholeheartedly agree, wholeheartedly. So let's talk about on a little lighter side, what's the best and worst part of being a CEO?
The worst part is it is lonely. It's a lonely, lonely, lonely position. Now, fortunately for me, as you heard, I have a great, in my inner circle, I have great board members that I can reach out to at any time. I have a great spouse. I have a brother who is like 8 times CEO, and he's always been somebody I can call to talk about stuff. But it's still lonely. It's still I suffer from insomnia on those very difficult days where I just go, God, how are we going to survive? And that fear of failure. I feel that when, we get rejection, I get rejections on, fundraising, and when you get those rejections, you just take them so personally. There's not one rejection that doesn't affect me personally. And so that's really difficult to overcome. That's like one of the worst aspects of being a CEO. But on the flip side, when we do get chosen for an investment or for recognition or for some award, we got the Louis Villalobos Award, the pride and the ability to accept that on behalf of my team just makes me so proud. And that's like one of the best feelings of being a CEO.
That's great.
Yeah, it's
you have to hold on to those times.
Yeah, it's just, but that's like, I like to tell people, like, that's the mom in me. I think that women can, like, completely, that's like like when your kid gets recognized for doing
Yeah.
something great, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's definitely that aspect that we bring to the table of just that pride of, okay, we did this.
That's great. So now we're going to talk about advice. What advice would you give to aspiring CEOs like the women of CEOX?
Wow. I think that what's really important if you are on the younger side looking at wanting to become a CEO is truly identifying people in your network that can provide really, really good advice. Be part of your start creating that inner circle now.
Mm-hmm.
Those and the other thing is identifying your champions now. I didn't acknowledge this in my career, that I actually had a champion. At one of my earlier gigs, one of my earlier jobs was when I was at Oregon Steel Mills way back when, and the president CEO was one of my champions, and that just blew past me. I did not appreciate it. I didn't leverage it. I didn't take advantage of it, but he was in my corner constantly, pushing me and supporting me and giving me more additional responsibility. And I didn't appreciate it at all. And if I went back, if I had the opportunity to go back in time and understand that, I think that I would have been ready to step into a leadership role much quicker.
Fascinating. That's really interesting.
Yeah, oh my goodness, Luann. So I would venture to guess that the people in your network or that are aspiring CEOs have champions, and they just don't know it. And they don't take advantage of it.
That's a really good exercise. Yeah, because we were just talking about, sponsorship. We were talking about it. That was the word we were using, but same champions, and how hard it is to find sponsorship. But it's making me rethink that perhaps that's there. We just aren't realizing it and taking advantage of it, and clearly not for everyone, but it's giving me pause and causing me to reflect. So that's great advice.
Well, and I totally agree with you about the word sponsor versus mentor. I don't, okay, I'm 62 years old. I don't need a mentor. I need sponsors.
That's right.
I need people who will open doors for me. I need people who's going to make introductions for me. I need people who will be able to, like you say, be that, I believe in you, Rita, and I so believe in you and what you're doing and your company and your team, that I'm going to take this extra step to open this door and connect you. That's what I need. Yes. I don't need mentorship. And I'm not being egotistical about that, but good Lord, maybe when I was in my 20s and 30s, that, having a mentor, but I also do appreciate the fact that I now recognize that, as I'm on the older side, that, there are women out there who actually are older, and they set the groundwork, right? They broke the barriers. They broke some of the barriers. But I'm still so amazed, dismally amazed, at how few women are in the world of deep tech, R&D intensive, hardware, deep, just the hardcore sciences and engineering that when I'm out there in natural gas and energy and all these other conferences and everything, that there's just still such a lack of women out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that I don't know where it's breaking down. I don't know if it's in the pipeline of going back to STEM. And as you know, I'm on the STEM Council for Education for the state of Oregon, because I do believe that things are breaking, starting with early childhood through elementary, through secondary, into higher ed. There's some challenges there that need to be addressed and fixed if we're going to try to get more women and diversity into these fields, and especially into the fields of into leadership.
Yeah. So you talk about the more science engineering based roles in getting women into that. What do you think beyond that, what needs to change to increase women in leadership, into CEO roles across industries?
Well, Luann, I think
Please tell me how
like the
to
work
change
you're
the world.
doing. Yeah, no. Well, it starts with the steps like you're taking. It starts with the steps of women seeing themselves as CEOs. I think it has to. I mean, like I said, I didn't see myself in that role until 7 years ago, and I was 55.
Right.
So why didn't I see myself in that role when I was 35?
Right.
Or 45?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't have an answer for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that there's also how the perception of failure, and how sometimes I can tell you that back in my 30s and 40s, I felt I could never make a mistake.
Yeah.
That if I made a mistake, that it wasn't just Rita making a mistake. It was all of womankind making a mistake.
Right.
So the I have to tell you that perfectionism is is one of my barriers.
Mm-hmm.
I will agonize over emails. I will agonize over what I've written. I will agonize over my work. I will agonize over a PowerPoint presentation. I will agonize because I want it to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then I find that when I find mistakes in others, I'm really super agitated. So, but it comes from years and years of just feeling like I can't make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And the fear of failure, even now, today, is huge in my world. And I don't know how to overcome that.
Yeah. I get that. And I'll just say that you are a person I look up to for inspiration. And I see that you struggle with that, and I just see you as a huge success, no matter what happens in the future. Like, there's so many things that I know about you that you have overcome, that I see you as a huge success and role model.
Well, thank you, Luann. You're gonna make me cry. Well, that's great. And I'm really honored that you're saying those words, because it means a lot to me, obviously. And I don't know what to tell I don't know what I would have told my younger me.
Right.
On how to not have failure play such a big role.
Mm-hmm.
because it's kind of not fair. Because we don't, and I think it also impacts other, not just women. I think it impacts other races and ethnic origins, that, you know, and that there's this sense of, oh my goodness, and if I were Black and female, that'd be like double,
Oh, yeah.
oh my goodness, I can't make a mistake. I think it would compound it. But being a woman in deep science and R&D and energy, and where it's just so dominated by males, that you just kind of, you don't want to getting up in front of a group of people and talking about your technology, and talking about your thought leadership, and talking about, you talk about imposter syndrome. I mean, you just don't want to make a mistake. And I was telling you earlier before we started recording, it's like, it is, for me, it is so scripted. It is so scripted, because I just don't want to make a mistake.
Well, thank you for sharing
So
that.
when you solve that, when you solve that, when you say,
I actually have thoughts
here's
around
the,
that.
here's the kind of,
I have some ideas around that. I'll talk to you
here's
offline
the therapy
about
that you need to go through. Okay, yeah, here's the therapy you need to go through in order to fix that.
I really think we just need to be taught some of these skills as very young women. How to overcome imposter syndrome. You know, that hasn't been something I even thought about until recently. How to overcome the need for perfectionism. How to handle issues at work when you are a woman and you get some off-color comment made about you, and how do you handle those situations? Because I do think as young women, we're coming out of school, we're very idealistic. Most of us have been raised in very families where we have been told we can do anything, and we're not prepared for the reality of some of these situations that we get in. And so I'm thinking about how we can talk to younger women about that very early on, and so they're prepared and they can start acting on that when they're 21 instead of when they're 41.
Or 61, 62.
Or 61,
yeah,
whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
And yeah. I'm more than 41, by the way. But 41's fine. Let's go with that. Well, let's just wrap up. I have one more question for you. You recently shared a very intense story about a climbing accident you had several years ago, and I will link to the podcast for that here so that people can go and listen if they're interested. My jaw dropped when I heard this story. So my question to you give a quick summary of what happened, and what are the lessons that you took from that have helped you as a CEO?
Yes, and thank you, Luann, for listening to that podcast, because that also means a lot. It was, as you know, it was like 45 minutes or so to listen to that, and it was based on a story that happened to me on Mount Rainier back in I think it was 2007, so it was 13 years ago. It was actually 13 years ago, like last weekend. And it was just falling into a crevasse and being buried alive for 45 minutes. And the whole rescue and how I came out of that pretty unscathed physically. But the lessons learned, and the podcast obviously talks about the various lessons learned that I wanted to really share with the mountaineering community, but also just on my mental health, is how I was able to stay calm, knowing that there were people, my son, and others that I knew I had a lot of faith in, I knew what they were doing, that allowed me to stay calm, and also just knowing that I had to stay calm through that situation. And that's actually one of my strengths as a CEO, is I'm pretty even keeled, as I am not one of those. I'm very passionate about what we're doing, and I have my bad days, but in general, I'm a pretty even keeled person, because when you've gone through that kind of an experience, you do recognize, and I talk about this in the podcast, that what's going on at business is not life or death.
Mm-hmm.
What was happening to me in that crevasse for 45 minutes was clearly life and death. And as you know, at the end, when we got out, that if I had been stuck down there for one more minute, it would have been all over for me. So just that serendipity and the luck and everything that kind of combined, clearly there was a purpose for me to not have my life end right there at that point on August 10th, 2007. But so that's also given me some purpose around, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing? Is this the right thing for me? So really, like, lessons learned, and there's many others, as you know, that I talked about throughout that podcast. But the big takeaway was surrounding yourself with good people.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, really, really surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you,
Mm-hmm.
but knowing that that's okay, because if you know what you know and you know what you don't know, you really want people who know more around you. And then number 2 is recognizing the difference between life and death,
Mm-hmm.
and appreciating the life.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for all your thoughts over this past hour. I am so appreciative of learning from you, and thank you for taking the time.
You're so welcome, Luann. Good luck with this series.
Thank you.
I look forward to the launch.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Feel free to reach out to me afterwards if you want.